Hello, today's video we have the following content.
A shocking twist. Words can lie, but subconscious actions don't. The Guo Yuxin and Liu Xiaoxu fan meeting was rife with undercurrents. Two small gestures directly betrayed the emotional trajectory. Fan meetings are usually considered safe zones, with pre-rehearsed scripts and practiced expressions. Every answer is like a meticulously crafted template. But, as the saying goes, we can control our mouths, not our bodies. A moment's subconscious reaction is often more honest than any response. This fan meeting between Liu Xiaoxu and Guo Yuxin is a prime example. On the surface, everything seemed calm, but beneath the surface, undercurrents surged. When the host posed that unavoidable question, the air visibly paused. Guo Yuxin laughed first, a perfectly professional laugh, but her speech was a beat faster than usual. Liu Xiaoxu, however, hesitated for a second before responding, this momentary hesitation revealing his vulnerability. Even more intriguing were his actions. Some noticed that before answering just friends, his thumb unconsciously rubbed the edge of the microphone, a typical self-soothing behavior often seen during periods of tension or inner conflict. His words were nonchalant, but his actions subtly revealed his inner turmoil. Guo Yuxin, too, wasn't entirely without flaws. While listening to Liu Xiaoxu's answer, she subconsciously lowered her head to tidy a stray hair behind her ear. This subtle yet extremely personal gesture, psychologically speaking, is a manifestation of emotional buffering. When people hear an answer that doesn't entirely meet their expectations, they often use small gestures to divert their attention. A more crucial scene occurred during the interactive segment. When Liu Xiaoxu spoke, his body leaned slightly towards Guo Yuxin, but when she answered a question, he quickly tightened his shoulder line, as if realizing something and immediately returning to a safe distance. This repeated approach and withdrawal is inherently contradictory. If they were truly just ordinary friends, was such restraint necessary? One fan, reflecting on the event, bluntly stated, that wasn't a professional act, it was suppressed emotion. It wasn't deliberate sweetness or blatant flirtation, but rather an instinctive reaction repeatedly pulled by reason. Most intriguing was their eye contact. The gazes were brief, yet they always lingered for a half second after the other finished speaking. That half second wasn't for the camera, nor was it instructed by fans, it was purely an unconscious focus. Their mouths could agree, but their actions were independent. So the question wasn't, were they acting? It was, if there really was nothing, why act so intensely? After the fan meeting, the topic quickly escalated. Some firmly stood on the rational friendship side, while others couldn't help but ask, was this barely concealed tension and restraint a deliberate attempt to avoid suspicion, or had their emotions already crossed that line? Perhaps no one dared to say the answer aloud, but their bodies spoke volumes. This is precisely what made the fan meeting so intriguing. It's not a blatant display of affection, nor is it a marketing ploy designed to generate buzz. Rather, it exists in a gray area between reason and emotion. You could say it's real, yet the parties involved maintain a consistent story. You could say it's fake, yet the unconscious pauses, avoidances, and excessive concern are undeniably real. Why do fans rewatch it repeatedly? Not to prove any concrete evidence of their relationship, but to find a touch of unscripted authenticity in these fragmented details. Liu Xiaoxu's restraint and Guo Yuxin's defensiveness are like two intersecting yet deliberately divergent lines. The more suppressed, the more intriguing. Even more subtle is the asymmetry between their states. Liu Xiaoxu seems more aware of the danger, speaking cautiously and acting restrained, while Guo Yuxin appears to be trying to remain calm, yet constantly slowed down by her emotions. This asymmetry itself is more intriguing than any sweet interaction. Therefore, what truly captivates fans isn't the question what is our relationship, but the unspoken subtext conveyed through their actions. Perhaps they are truly just friends now, and perhaps they will go their separate ways in the future. But at least in that moment, the emotions were real. The most paradoxical thing about the entertainment industry is this: the truth may not be spoken, and lies may not be told completely. And caught in the middle are these subtle gestures that cannot be edited out. They are quiet and unassuming, yet sharp enough to leave an ambiguous yet clear mark on the audience's mind with a gentle touch. This is why this fan meeting was repeatedly dissected, like a psychological experiment slowed down to 0.25 times speed. Every pause, every blink, every superfluous movement is given meaning. Do you think fans are overinterpreting? To some extent, yes, but if there were truly no emotional fluctuations, where would all this material for interpretation come from? Celebrities certainly understand the camera and people's hearts. But even the most seasoned actor can only control their expressions and words. It's difficult to simultaneously monitor the reflexes of every muscle. Those subconscious actions like rolling up sleeves, pursing lips, touching, and avoiding are the body speaking for emotions. These statements don't necessarily equate to concrete proof of love, but they are enough to demonstrate that emotions haven't been completely erased. Therefore, instead of dwelling on what exactly their relationship is, it's better to acknowledge a more realistic picture. There was closeness, hesitation, and deliberate distance. It's not ambiguous marketing, nor is it fan self-indulgence. It's simply the most common, and clumsy, way adults cope with private emotions in public. This also explains why a simple "we're just friends" doesn't end the discussion. Because what's truly seen isn't the statement itself, but whether the body is relaxed, the gaze steady, and the movements necessary when saying it. The words clarify, but the body remains reserved. In the end, this heated debate may not have a definitive answer. Emotions are not black and white, nor can they be definitively judged by a single statement. It's more like a line being repeatedly pulled, one end rationality, the other unspoken attraction. The reason why viewers and fans are willing to invest so much emotion in watching, analyzing, and debating is perhaps because they see their own reflection in these small flaws, those moments when we tried to deny them but were betrayed by our own honesty. So, when the lights go out, the event ends, and the crowd disperses, those moments captured by the camera become the most authentic aftershocks. They aren't dramatic, but they linger. They aren't ostentatious, but they stubbornly remain in our memories. Perhaps even the people involved didn't have time to think about it, but their bodies had already made the choice for their emotions. This is why the more heavily packaged the occasion, the easier it is for uncontrolled reality to emerge. Meet and greets should be safe, controllable, and rehearsed, but it is precisely in such an environment that human nature is more easily exposed. It's not because of a lack of professionalism, but because emotions cannot be completely rehearsed. Some say that fans' excessive obsession with these details is treating others as vessels for emotional projection. But from another perspective, isn't this also a form of empathy? Seeing their tension, hesitation, and self-restraint in front of the camera is actually seeing ourselves trying to pretend to be nonchalant in those moments. Perhaps many years later, when looking back at this scene, we won't be bothered by what they really meant at the time. But one thing is certain, those small yet genuine reactions have proven one thing: at that moment, they weren't symbols, not topics, but ordinary people with emotions and weight. Entertainment news will eventually fade, and the hype will subside. But the reason those details are repeatedly mentioned is precisely because they weren't deliberately designed. They existed quietly, like a footnote wrapped in time, reminding us that true emotions never rely on declarations, but are hidden in those uncontrollable moments. That's precisely why these moments are so powerful. They are not as definitive as official announcements, nor as noisy and jarring as gossip, yet they can subtly and precisely strike the softest spot in people's hearts. You can't prove what they represent, but it's hard to deny that they truly existed. In those brief seconds, emotions have no lines, actions have no rehearsals, everything happens too fast for reason to adjust. And so, the truth slips out from the cracks. Perhaps it's just a pause, an avoidance, a superfluous touch, but it's enough to make people savor it repeatedly. Fans' speculations may never have an answer, but that doesn't prevent these details from becoming the core of the discussion. Because what people care about is never the conclusion, but the uncompromising truth in the process. When everything is covered by time, what remains is not necessarily the words spoken, but those undeniable moments. They are like undercurrents, quiet yet powerful, proving that emotions never need to be loudly proclaimed, they only need to be truly felt once.
Thank you for watching the video. If this is your first time watching a video, please subscribe to the channel, like and leave your comments to help us develop your channel.